Hey, thanks for being here. Today's episode is going to be, I think, short and sweet. I say that. Who knows? You never know. But I'm saying short and sweet in the sense of what I had originally thought I was going to do for this episode. I've decided I'm going to hang on to it in my heart and my head and just pray and process a little more on it. And we will bump that to sometime in the next couple of weeks. But I wanted to say something today that I've shared bits and pieces to a few people I've been in conversation with, and it seems to be a message that's resonating. So I thought, hey, I will do an episode about this. And here's what I want to remind you today. If you're here listening, either today or whenever you hear this, I want to remind you that you are not behind. You are not behind. And I think that we can all live with this pressure and this urgency to feel like we're keeping up with something or feel these expectations from others. And I know for me personally, I feel like I lived so many years feeling such pressure, I would say, outside pressure. And I'm not saying there absolutely was at times in different seasons. There was absolutely different kinds of pressures that were real that I was feeling. But I did realize at some point that a lot of the pressures that I continued to carry were self-induced pressures, that when I actually broke down what I was feeling, I was the one that was allowing myself to feel the pressure. So even today's episode, I'm trying to practice what I preach, because it's been a process through the years of doing the work to not live in that way, to live in peace by living with rhythms and practices that I choose to intentionally live in, that when I feel my peace slipping, then I know something's off. And so I have to look and think, where is that? So even with today's episode, I felt pressure the past few days of like, you haven't done an episode for this week. And different things have come up that I have felt inclined to put above recording a podcast, and just different life things. So sure, I can make it happen, and I go ahead with what I had planned on. But like I said, I'm choosing to practice what I preach. And when I stop and honestly look at the situation, nobody knows what episode I was going to do. I could skip a week and I wouldn't get any emails, or any of you listening would not come at me and think, you didn't have a Thursday episode. Yet I know I have that expectation of like, this is what I do. This is my schedule. And every Thursday there's a podcast episode that comes out. But I'm choosing to live in peace, and the expectation, I'm not letting anybody down in this. I mean, there's times we can't let something slide because we have responsibilities to show up, and whether it be a job with our family in whatever way. So this is not one of those things. Yes, this is part of my work and part of my job, but this particular avenue, I can be flexible in. I mean, some of the scheduling and things that are put out, I'm the one that controls that. And I've established this thing so I can live like that. So when I am feeling those pressures, I can say, Susan, nobody is going to be affected in the way you're feeling in this moment. It's you. It's something that you had intended to do. And like I said, I could still make it happen in the way I had originally thought it was going to happen. But I don't have to. I mean, nothing's going to happen if I don't do that. So I can pivot and I can adjust, and I can go another direction, which is what I'm doing today. Because honestly, the thought that has moved ahead in that is what I'm sharing today. That is, you are not behind. Wherever you find yourself today, whatever season you find yourself in today, be there. Be there in that moment. So I'm choosing to do that today, and hopefully model that, because I want to live authentically. It's where I don't want to to share things that I'm not living myself. I want to live in integrity and do my best to live to what I share. And part of that is what I speak about all the time is being present where my feet are and recognizing that God is right there in that moment with me, that God's presence is right there in that moment with me. And that changes our perspective. That changes any fear or anxiety that we might be projecting into the future and taking on and bringing into this present moment. Okay. So I want to invite you today to be present in the moment, in the season that you find yourself in today, and trust that your God is right there in that moment with you. What is he asking of you? What pressure are you feeling that you're not being asked to carry, that you are inviting and you're carrying that pressure on your own? So what does that look like to be present in the moment and the season you're in? It means having peace in the present moment that you're in and not living and standing in that moment thinking about next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, but instead being fully present in the presence of God and allowing his presence and peace to be right there with you, because it's in that time when you're present that the deep work is done. And you can't hack growth. We can't hack growth in our life. We can't be in a particular season or a particular moment and change what's to come. But we can be changed, which does change what is to come. But when we try to hack or rush that moment, we miss the growth and the nurturing and the transformation that our God, our Creator, desires to do in that moment within us. Growth is deep, and growth happens in sacred places where we're still and we allow God to meet us right where we're at. So don't allow any kind of pressure you might be allowing to come upon yourself to change where you're at in this moment. And I'm praying today that God's presence will surround you with his peace, a peace that passes all of our human understanding, and that your heart and your mind will settle down and you will not take on any outside pressure to be anywhere or to be anything other than where God has you in this moment. Because when you will settle in to his care and surrender to his leading and right where you are at in your life, that's where the change happens. When you're not resisting and trying to be somewhere other than where you're at in this moment, that's where transformation happens. And that transformation might not be visible, probably won't be visible to anybody else, but it's necessary. And it's when you will allow the change to happen within you that it does change next week, next month, next year, and the next 10 years. But if you're constantly living the present moment, thinking about what is to come, you miss the power of the moment you're in. You're not behind. You're not missing out on anything. You're in the moment you are in for a reason. So allow everything that needs to take place in your life in that moment. Allow it. Allow God to work in you and produce what only he can produce in this moment. Love you guys, and we'll talk soon.